Hi everyone, I'm Marla Bowman. I'm the General Counsel at the Canadian Media Production Association. And for those of you who don't exactly know where you are, you're at the Quebec Success in the International Film and TV Business Panel in the Governor Ballroom 3. And before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsors, for whom without this event would not be possible. And we'd like to remind you to please turn off your cell phones and anything else that may ring or ding.
Good idea.
And now I'd like to introduce the moderator, Mr. Hans Fraikin, and he is the Film Commissioner for the Quebec Film and Television Council and also the General Manager of the Audio Visual Cluster. And,
Well done. Thank you, Marla. Thank you. So, as Marla said, welcome to this panel, this first ever CMPA panel on the Quebec Film and Television model internationally. And its success, or as we like to call it, the Pepsi Challenge. We can say that. A couple of housekeeping notes, because it's not a full hall. I think if you have any questions or comments during the discussions while the topic's hot, just lift your hand, and there's a mic. They'll bring you the mic, and the floor will be yours. Also, if you hear some strange vocabulary coming out of my mouth, our working language in Quebec, as many of you painfully know, is still French, so don't be surprised. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce this distinguished panel. To my left, Jean-Pierre, co-founder of Incendo, as well as being the president of the APFTQ, the Quebec Producers Association. To André's left is, to Jean's left is, starting well, André Rouleau, the founder and president of Caramel Film. And to André's left is Jesse Prupas, the VP of Development and Distribution at Muse Entertainment. Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
Thank you.
What all three of these, our panelists, have in common is they run three of the most commercially successful entertainment companies in Canada, without a shadow of a doubt. But as we're going to find out, all three of them have three very unique and different business models. And what we're going to try to do today is find out what the common elements are between these different distribution elements and try to explain the success of Quebec Film and Television internationally. So let's start with you, Jean, co-founder of Incendo with Stephen Greenberg in 2001. And then just a few years, you've become one of the most prolific MOW producers in Canada, producing about $3 to $4 million MOWs, plus scripted drama series. And if I understand, you're the biggest distributor in Canada.
That's my understanding as well.
So, what's up?
Well, that's a big question. If we go back in time, now 11 years ago, Stephen and I decided to work on a business model that would allow us to do a few things. First, we wanted to be our own masters. So we thought about, in what field of the business we could concentrate our efforts, where we could find the properties ourselves, develop it ourselves, finance it with our partners internationally, and be successful. So we thought for a long time about what we were going to do, and we ended up doing TV movies. And I'll get back after how come we got to that result. But we ended up deciding to do TV movies with female lead in a urban setting with budgets of about $3.5 to $4 million. So how did I get to that math and that equation is simple, but it took a long time. First, we had to spend a lot of time with our clients. We had to travel a lot. We had to listen a lot. The idea being to try to identify the demand for television programming. Because again, I'm going to only talk to you today about television programming because that's the only part we are involved in on the production side of our business. So spending a lot of time listening, trying to understand what could work in the main territories, in the main 5 or 6 territories worldwide, so including US, UK, Spain, France, Germany. And now today, this equation, this financial equation is also moving. We have to add to that now. One of our main partners today is not South America, but yes, South America. So looking into that, we ended up with a model. We started with one film. Today we've produced 54 movies in 11 years, but we started with one film, which was going to be our experiment and hopefully a successful one, where we have convinced enough of our partners internationally and in the United States to pre-buy our script on the promise of delivering to them the demographics that they wanted to get. So we made the first movie, the ratings came in, and the ratings were good. So we moved on to the second film, and so on and so forth. So on the TV movie side, Hans, that's a bit, how we looked at it, and I think that the key of the success of that part of our business was certainly the ability to meet with the client and spend a lot of time with them and listen to what they want, what they wanted and what works in their countries. And we still do, and we still go to every television market that happens in the world, and we still meet with them, and we ask them their feedback on the last movie we delivered, what worked, what was more difficult, what created issues, were there scenes that they had to cut out, why. So that's all part of, how we deal with that specific type of programming. So the result of that is a brand. Incendo is now in the world of broadcasters and cable operators, a brand that means female lead suspense.
So you started 10 years ago what Jean-Pierre told us this morning, which was understand what the audience wants to consume.
Well, you have to.
And you're producing it.
You have to understand that it's maybe it's part of where I come from. I studied economy, so they hammered me with understanding the demand for many years at university, and that's what we try to do, to understand what the needs were.
Okay, so we'll get back to this really interesting model. But André, your model is extremely different in the sense that where Jean is strictly doing TV and various versions of that, you strictly do feature films.
Yes. Well, absolutely, caramel film. It's well. I thought first that we were going to give not the caramel secret, but the caramel secret, which is but it's very easy because. Us Quebecer, everybody knows in the rest of the Canada that we are very stubborn because after 2 referendum, everybody knows that in Quebec we don't take no for an answer. So basically, I think seriously, I think this is probably the most important quality for a producer. Don't take no for an answer. Because it's useful, because a lot of people say no, because unless I'm not like Jean, because I'm very impressed by Jean. Jean is really a model it should be a model for all Canadians, because he had a plan, well thought, and he made it, so it's great. In my case, in film, it's a bit different, but there's one thing for sure, if we want to be successful in film, to be a film producer, you need to develop your own project and own, like Jean, this is the same, own the material, own the copyright. So basically, I don't want to take too much time, but there's a very good, everybody knows the Starbuck success. Don't want to be too humble.
That's also a Quebec quality.
But last year at TIFF, we presented the film for the first time, and a few Americans saw the film, and they contacted us to buy the remakes right. And we had a plan. Ken and I, Ken the director, we wanted to produce the remake ourselves. everybody in America with American star. That was our plan. Everybody told they told us that we were lunatic, we were crazy. It's never going to happen. You will not be able to do that. It doesn't work like that, etc., etc. No, to work in the U.S. with a Quebec director, impossible. Quebec writer. I'm saying Quebec, but I can say Canadian. It's the same thing. You know that. Impossible, never happened. So we're stubborn, like I said. So we took our legs and we walked the road in Los Angeles and New York, and we met. Our plan first, we say we're going to attract a star, because as we all know here, it's to have a star attached in a feature film. That's the way now. It's always been probably the way to finance film. It's help in a way. So we've contacted several agencies, the main agency, and then we made some offer. We made offer to Robert Downey Jr. and Ben Stiller, and we were able to get. I don't want to take too much time.
Well, we have an hour. Thank you.
So we were able to get the CD of the original film to Robert Downey Jr. He gave it to his manager, agent at CAA, and he looked at the film. So that was exactly, you know, Jean. So and he pitched the film to the next meeting at CAA, and in the room, Steven Spielberg agent was in the room. She was attracted by the concept, so she watched the film herself and contacted us. Of course, this took several months before we get to that. But when we get to her, when she called me, the very first, the same day that the pitch was made at the CA meeting, she called me the same afternoon and asked me if the film, if we had already made a deal. And I said no. But I thought she wanted to buy the concept, so I said, but you know, we don't want to sell the film. I have a director, we want to produce the film. She said, yes. It's okay. And she asked me, when are you coming back to Los Angeles? I said, tomorrow. Was not exactly true, but we went to Los Angeles the next day, and we had the meeting the following day with with Stacy Snyder, the head of DreamWorks, and Steven Spielberg, and we cut the deal very rapidly, and this time, and we did make the film. I produced the movie, Ken wrote the remake and direct the movie as well, and the movie will be released in October. So this is not the. So this is the secret, luck.
Well, now we have the answer, so thank you for coming. So anyway, we're going to get back to Starbuck because it truly is a phenomenon. The most successfully, commercially successful movie of 2011. Format rights being picked up in India and all over the place. So we're going to talk about that. But Jesse, again, totally different business model. These Jean strictly TV, André feature, and you're kind of all over the place, right? You're TV, feature, domestic, service, distribution, international sales, and what do you guys not do? Maybe that's
We haven't done a lifestyle program yet, but we've got a few demos to show you, Hans. Our company's roots, actually, you mentioned service, our roots were in service. Our company was founded in 1998 with the idea of at that time, the Canadian dollar was worth a lot less. It was a much more interesting time to be a service producer in this country. And there was a lot of opportunities for Americans wanting to shoot TV movies and feature films up in Toronto, Montreal. And we saw, we had a vision at that time for a company that would be both in service and in co-production, and using Canada effectively as a bridge between Europe and the United States. But as the economics of service changed rapidly throughout between 2000 and 2005, we lost a huge competitive advantage as our dollar shifted. Our company had to think in a different way, and that was to think about original content and developing our own series. And so that's been our thrust. It started off with partnerships, primarily with Canadian producers. Bernie Zuckerman was one of our first key partnerships, and we produced a series with him in Toronto called This is Wonderland. And then we formed another partnership with Back Alley Films. And it's always been a kind of a studio deal, if you will, where Muse will handle the financing, the distribution, the production, but we're looking to find the best creative talent, best creative producers in the country to work with. And since there's been other deals we've made on the animation side that way as well. We're doing animation too, is another part of our business. And like Jean, we've played in the TV movie business as well, and continue to do so. Although it's tough, as Jean knows, it can be really tough in the TV movie business these days.
But whereas you started in service, now you're more and more focused on TV.
Very much so. Yeah, and the number of features that we get pitched features all the time, and there is there's this kind of a saying in our company that television is a business, but features are a hobby. And I don't know if you feel that way, because you certainly made a business.
Talk to my wife about it.
About the hobby?
Yeah, an obsessive
full-time hobby.
Yeah, a full-time hobby, an obsessive one, features. And we had some tough experiences on features, both in documentary, and we had produced a feature with Meg Ryan and William H. Macy back in 2006 that was that went to Sundance, and everything was called The Deal. And it was just a heartbreaking experience for us, because we've spent so much money and so much effort making this movie, and for no one and to get stars like that, we thought, oh my God, we've got Meg Ryan, this is going to make a mark, and no one's ever seen it. And I'm sure that's been our big challenge.
Well, that's for those of you who heard Linda Schuler yesterday. She was talking about the magic component, the lightning in a bottle. How you can have the same ingredients in two different projects, and one just catches and one doesn't. But what seems particular about you three, except for a few exceptions, is the lightning always seems to strike in the bottle. So that's what we want to explore a bit more. Jean, you mentioned that a lot of it is reaching out and keeping this consistent and constant contact with your clients, your broadcasters, the people who are helping you finance and produce your movies. And André, how do you go about, figuring out what the flavor of the day is?
Well, the flavor of the day, I don't know, but if I can, there's one thing I see here, except three nice gentlemen. It's we definitely live in Quebec, but we don't stay in Quebec. First of all, we develop our network. This is definitely something we have in common, because we at Caramel we do a lot of co-production with other countries. So I think this is definitely what we characterize a successful company, because we have to go. The world is our really. So we at Caramel we start a network with some European producer, and now it's a repeat business. I cannot say it's the model, but I think it is, because I did 3-4 film with the producer of The Artist, so we already did several films together. We are working on another film. I'm working with the producer of Les Intouchables. We're doing an animated film actually. We have 2 other films on our table to work together. So it's developing a network. So I think to be successful is we have to go outside our boundary, our limit. That's what we need to do. And I was very impressed with Jean did. I knew a little bit, because I think if somebody wants to be a producer, needs to focus what's the market, what I can do, and because it's not happening like that by accident. You work and then you get lucky.
But what's also different with what Jean does is you control the whole process. So not only the development and the production of what you develop, but also the distribution.
Yes, we do. In fact, and distribution has allowed us to be in touch with the clients. So we have a Canadian distribution arm in television, and we also have an international distribution arm to be in touch with our international clients. So this arm not only creates sales opportunity, but brings us a lot of information. And that's taking us now from producing TV movies to producing TV series, again with female lead or female lead actresses, I should say.
Why female, yeah?
Because of the demographics.
Because it's French.
Because that's what, yeah, well, if I have a choice, I'd rather work with, an actress and an actor as a lead. That's not true, just joking. But because of the demographic and because that's what the broadcaster wants to reach.
Because the
They're
female decide,
advertisers.
they're the one who decide.
It's part of the answer. It's part of the answer. And the global answer is that they're being told by the advertisers that if it is a female lead series or TV movies that attract the female to watch it, and there's enough in it in terms of plot, action, and all that to bring in the male audience also, it's a winning combination. And it's a proven winning combination. So that's what we're trying to do. And now we're moving into the television series world on the same business model, which is to finance the series on pre-sales. And we're going to do an action martial art type series. We're doing another one, which is I can't say too much because I'm not allowed to, but in a very specific and dramatic world, set in a very specific and dramatic world, totally different from, and not so much action. We're doing one which is going to be historical, but always with the female. And that's part of our brand. And when you can't be good or excellent in everything, and we're trying to be good and excellent in that brand and in that type of programming, so people, when they think female lead, they understand that we can deliver. So that's...
And also, André, you're asking why, suspense, female lead, why that formula. One of your biggest clients, partners, if you like, is
Yes.
100 million subscribers. I mean,
100 million homes, yeah.
Yeah, that's, you couldn't ask for a better partner. So you are really, creating with that audience and that financial partner right from the start.
Yes, in fact, yes. We need to juggle with everybody's interests. So the US is a big part of the equation, obviously. But the Canadian part is very important as well. So we spend a lot of time with the Canadian broadcasters as well to try to understand the same thing, where they want to do, what they want to produce, who they're trying to reach. So based on that, we take our 4 or 5 most important territories and I try to figure out where the circles all touch each other and try to develop with the most creative people, because this is another part that we don't control. We don't develop in-house. We work with anybody who has a great idea. So we work a lot with the creative and the creative community and the writers per se. And we tell them exactly what we're looking for. We don't want to receive, 100,000 different synopses and stuff like that. We want to let them know, here's what we're looking for. And if you have a good idea that would capture this type of programming, we would like to read it.
And Jesse, I guess same thing for Muse. I mean, in the last few years, you guys have developed some incredible, series, and I'm thinking of the Kennedys, which won multiple awards, a lot of free press. How does something like that come about?
Well, it's something that I think André touched upon. By attending all these international markets, by spending time building contacts, this is in Los Angeles, in New York, this is a long process of establishing credibility as a company. And I think as Quebecers, we've had an advantage, a particular advantage, that we speak English and French fluently and have the ability to work and make sales in Quebec and make sales in English Canada, and then put on our kind of American hat and go over to LA and make meet talent over there, especially. But then you can be in France and you're set up a co-production in France. I think France has been a very interesting country for all of us to work with over the years. And I think we're in a particularly advantageous position because French producers are kind of more comfortable, I think, working. And that's I think, a generalization, but I think it is an advantage that we have. And in the case of the Kennedys, we've been able to tap into a desire that some key talent in the U.S. has had, and a frustration, more than the desire, frustration that they've had with the studio system, whereby they've, and in this case, the Kennedys was developed, first, the initial idea for the Kennedys sprung from a guy named Joel Surnow, who was the executive producer and creator of 24. He felt he created a $1 billion franchise that, and he hadn't received his back end, if you will. And surprise, surprise, he was frustrated, and he had sued. Sued and tried to get his money back, but it hadn't worked out. So we were able to offer him an interesting proposal. We will develop the show with you. We will provide transparent accounting. You will see the sales. You will see the contracts. It will be a real partnership. And not only that, we will finance 50% of the production. So there were some conditions. It had to be CanCon. It had to shoot in Canada. And we had to walk these producers through the way that we imagine the Kennedys as CanCon. That was like our biggest, one of our biggest challenges. But we found the talent to be able to do it, and we pulled it off in that way. And it has become our still to this day, the project that has defined our company. And in terms of built our distribution side as well, it's been really helpful that way to have a product. One of the few shows we were actually able to hold the rights on.
And because, Jean, will do a lot of the TV markets, I see you in all the feature markets, but you guys, AFM, NAPI, MIPS, CAN, you guys, because you're handling everything, you guys are everywhere.
With the exception of the feature film business. And truly, we don't go to the Cannes Film Festival, but we are at all the MIPS and the NAPIs, the AFMs, and that's, our focus is really television. We're trying to do ambitious television projects. I think the brand that we're trying to develop.
And in a case like the Kennedys, how many territories were pre-sold? And so, in other words, how much are you trying to, sell the series after the fact?
There were some big risks that we took on these huge risks, and it involved a cap financing deal that we were able to bridge the pre-sales. And in fact, we had an interesting experience in France with a network. Canada had been our likely first buyer and had put an offer in for the Kennedys. But as a lot of people know, we ended up in a situation in the United States on the Kennedys where History Network, for political reasons, decided to yank the series after they had invested $15 million in it and approved every script and every cut. And it was a really interesting situation we later understood having to do with the power of the Kennedy family, particularly the Schreiber family in LA and their connections with Anne Sweeney at Disney, and it became a big political thing. So our show became orphaned, and at that moment when we thought we had all these pre-sales, when you're suddenly an orphan, you get worried. And we in France is an example where we had to negotiate a number with them, and we were down, and they kind of kicked us, if you will, and they asked for a 50% reduction in their license fee, at which point we said, well, that's a big problem for us. And we just got lucky, I think, at the end. We ended up flipping the tables, and we went over to France Television, who bought the show for 50% more than the Canada Twist had been originally offered. And then, 2 weeks later, Canada Twist was calling us, going, "Why didn't you sell us the project?" And you guys are bastards. What can I say?
So you said it politely.
I did.
And André, I have to come back to Starbuck because I mean, you know, we cannot understate the phenomenon there. You know, People's Choice Award, Golden Reel Award. You sold the remake rights in, if I understand, in India, France. You were talking about the U.S. And if I also understand, the first Canadian feature ever to be part of the Chinese quota of 34, being released in over 2,000 screens.
Yeah, we're very proud of it. Yes, it's true. Starbuck, the original, will be released very, very soon in China in over 2,000 screens. So that's thank you. It took a year for E1 to negotiate that deal because, you know, well, we sold it very long time ago to the China distributor, but it has to pass the whole censorship system in China. It took a year, and but it's all okay. But it's interesting to think that a film with 500, where's a father at 535 children in China. So I think that they had a big interest. So they're putting a lot of P&A and release, and we're going to see it in 2,000 screen. It's going to be subtitled in, I'm not sure if it's Cantonese and dub in Mandarin or vice versa, but it's dub and subtitled in Chinese. So it's a big release, and it's next month. So we're very happy about it. Thank you. And the French remake, they start the shooting Monday. This week, they just started with José Garcia as the Starbuck, and the French original Starbuck is released. It's going to release today in Los Angeles and New York. We have fantastic review. E1, we did a very good job on Starbuck, both internationally and nationally. Send me some review press release. It's fantastic. So it looks good for our release, American release on the. It's going to be probably the 4th of October this year. So we look forward to it.
Will it be the same title?
It's not the title of the well, we had many discussions. Disney is releasing it, and Touchstone Disney will release worldwide, and we had many discussions with Disney people, marketing people. They didn't like Starbuck because of the confusion. I think it's we disagree, but we finally agree on Delivery Man because it's a good title. Because they proposed all kinds of titles, but Delivery Man is a good title. But we keep Starbuck, the name of the character. It's Starbuck in the movie. So. And I wish you're gonna all see the remake also in Canada.
Who's that cast?
It's Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn is playing Starbuck. Yes. Chris Pratt is playing the lawyer, and Kobe Smolder, which is Canadian, she's playing the girlfriend of Starbuck. Vince Vaughn is fantastic, Jean. Fantastic. He was so generous, so funny. We had a great time with him through the. As a matter of fact, you know, it happened because when we cut the deal, I can say that with DreamWorks, Steven Spielberg, we received a call. That was Thursday, and the next day I was because I was quite ahead in the discussion with Ben Stiller, so but we had no deal. But they were very interested. Ben Stiller's company want to co-produce with us. We were open to that because we want to keep, like Jean said, it's very important to own our right. So, but we were okay to share. But we were. So we saw them the day after we shake hands with Steven Spielberg. That was the Friday, and. Risa Gertner, Steven's agent, called me the previous Monday. So it all happened fast. So in Los Angeles, if we think Quebec is small, Los Angeles is very small. So everybody knew that we had a deal. And we received a very nasty call from Ben Stiller Company when I arrived in Montreal the next Monday because they say, hey, I thought we had a deal. I say, exactly like Canada. We had no deal. And so I say, oh, are you? Because Ben Stiller wanted to do the film, but like, you know, after that, this and this. So that was a problem for us. So, but with DreamWorks, they were ready to go right away. But at the same time, this is a small story, I don't know, but at the same time, we had Vince Vaughn company who heard about the concept and contacted us. I just arrived in Montreal and I received a call from, this is not registered, right here? So I received a call from CA, and the two presidents wanted to talk to me. Are you available at o'clock tonight for? Yes, I said yes. So I took the call the Monday night, and they said, listen, I know you talked with DreamWorks. Of course, they represent Steven Spielberg. Of course, they know. So I heard you had you're discussing a deal. But listen, we have a client, Vince Vaughn, who is interested in doing Starbuck. See what we're going to propose. Let's cut a deal between us with Vince Vaughn, and then we go to DreamWorks. We'll have more money. So they proposed that to us. So I said, listen, no, I don't think we cannot do that. I'm sorry, that's not the way we do business. Even if we're stubborn, we do. But they switch already. They're smart. They say, oh no, that's okay, it's okay. But I'm very interested in Vince Vaughn. So the next day I called Stacy Snyder at DreamWorks. I told her, she was furious. But at the same time, say, listen, that's the way they are. But listen, let's finalize our deal, and we're gonna contact Vince because it's a great idea. And at the end of the day, Vince Vaughn is playing in the movie, and he's fantastic in the movie. So this is the little story behind the
Great story. What we're seeing here is, we all know that, to be commercially successful, you got to start looking outside the borders, selling, like in any industry. But there seems to be a real advantage of our geographical positioning with the States. And Jean, how much, and we know there's an awful lot of Canadian writers and talent, migrating down south, working their trade down south. How much is that an advantage to what you do?
Well, being Canadian, I always would favor doing business with Canadian writers. It's a difficult business to be in, and they need our support. So whenever we can, and we do speak to them, and we do tell them what we're looking for, I would say that we have maybe 1 or 2 scripts that are Canadian every year. Some years less, but on an average at least 1. Obviously, when you look at the numbers of writers in North America, most of them are in the U.S. So most of the script come from the U.S. But it's an interesting thing because the TV movies is like a mini feature. Because you also have to cast it in a way that the client is going to be able to promote the movie. So we do the same kind of negotiating at a different scale for television programs for the actresses that play in the movies, and it is always surprising how agents react when they react, because you contact them and sometimes they don't even call you back. So, but it is interesting. It's an interesting process, and it's a very integral and important part of the success of the film, because you need to give the broadcaster the tool to market the movie. And the main tool is the actors.
Yeah, how the agent react when you mentioned TV instead of feature? Because I think now also the TV gained with the quality of the TV production now.
Yeah.
How did they react now?
Well, it's different now than 11 years ago. Now television, as you see, has been very successful in television. You see more and more feature actors going to television as well. For them, they finally understood after a few years working with us, and we work with all the different agencies in Los Angeles, that not only were we providing a very interesting source of revenue for their actors, they come to Montreal, they work for an average 18 days. They get a very substantial paycheck for those days. We treat them as if they were, as if they are, because they are. You know, they're stars, and so we put them in the best hotels. They have a chauffeur. You know, we make sure that they can visit the museums, that they have whatever their fields of interest are. We take very good care of them. And the thing is, we're talking about how small Hollywood is. Well, all these young actresses are about the same age in my movies. They all know each other. They text each other, you know, and frankly, on a few movies that have been like that, we got suggestions for our next movies from stars who played in our former movies saying, hey, my friend such and such would like to come to Montreal, lovely city, great, you know, great to work with you. Did you think of casting her in your next movie? So the world went around, and now it's easier than 10 years ago. So the short answer is it evolved over time, and the business also of television evolved. And you know, with the success of cable series and cable TV movies, it attracted more talent. And now television drama is not looked at as, you know, as much as it used to be looked at as a, you know, poor cousin.
Or,
Yeah. So, but it's a challenge. The agents are very special.
How much of a challenge
concur.
though, is it all, because everything you do is CanCon?
Yeah.
How much of it is a challenge to, you know, because you're 6 out of 10 and up?
It's never a challenge. In fact, last year we did one that happened to be 10 out of 10. The script was Canadian, the actress was Canadian, you know, she was living in LA. So it's never a challenge, to tell you the truth. We had no problems at all making all these movies Canadian content and making them appealing for the world markets.
Which is your secret.
John?
John.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming here. One of the similar business aspects of your model, it's seen clearly now, is that you've all had to fight hard to keep your IP. I just wanted to, from the production right to the distribution model, obviously. How hard has that been specifically as Canadian Quebecers to actually go there? Because it's not always a fight that you've fought before. And how important is it in your overall business model looking ahead? Because that's the real time.
That's a good question. Maybe starting with Muse.
It's the I think the thing we wake up in the morning thinking about, and at night going to bed thinking about as well. How do we hold on to the rights to, especially the ambitious projects, the more expensive dramas that we're producing. We you know, we like Jean, we've been in the television movie business as well, and as we're in the series business now, we've had to make some economic decisions that are sometimes might not be in the long. Well, let me put it this way: we've kind of decided if there's a place to hold on to the rights, it's going to be in the series world, because that can be the long-term play for our company. We're the challenge that we face is we have a hard time affording the rights for our own shows. The minimum advances that are needed to cover the budget of a television movie can be substantial. There are minimum guarantees needed there between $300,000 and $500,000. I'm sure, John, that's kind of your economic model for these things, and that's been a challenge for us. So as recently as this year, as we've had success in the series world, and the requirements for these series are extraordinary. We're talking about series that cost $2 million an episode times 13. You see where that goes to really quickly. You're looking at gaps of $5 million, $6 million to fund a Canadian series. And then while we're also in the television movie business, it can add up really, really quickly. This year we're producing 4 television movies, all in the Ontario area, but and regional Ontario actually, in northern Ontario. We're making use of some of these northern Ontario folks. But the decision at our company was, what do you choose? And we decided to invest our money, our distribution rights money into the series. And for the television movies, we're working with all the rights distributors that exist elsewhere. It's not the in an ideal world we would have kept all the rights to all our projects, but in this case it wasn't. It's just not possible until we have, I guess, larger size and more capital to invest in these things.
And is it the same challenge with feature?
In my case, it's different because since we developed or co-develop our own project, so we do own all the right. Our real challenge for us is to make sure we have the the fair price from our distributor. That's our real challenge. But in terms of right per se, what I was saying is it was more about selling like remakes right, but otherwise we keep our right because also the only way, like I said at the very beginning, it's to develop. It's development. In our case, I'm talking about feature film. It's of course we have to develop a lot of projects, because we don't produce all the projects we develop. And thanks to Telefilm, we've got Captain Baba is here today, and they have a very good system. SADEC also in development, and they really support us for the feature producer.
And Jean, how do you do it? Because typically a U.S. network wants to keep all the rights they can. But I gather there's an advantage of being a Canadian producer where they don't have that same leverage.
Well, yes and no, especially with now these cable networks having antennas in different countries, they want more and more to control, the world rights. They also want to control the subject matters. So it's been difficult. A few years ago, I would say 5, 6, or 7 years ago, one of our clients in the U.S. told us that, they had subject matters and scripts that they wanted us to look at, which we did, and we didn't think it would be interesting for our Canadian and international broadcasters, so we said, we won't pursue these scripts, and they said, well, why not? And we tried to explain it to them, and they said, well, okay, so and then it meant that the ones we were developing without them being partners from the get-go. They said, well, do your thing. We'll see if we buy them later on. So there was a big moment at some point where, like we were running with a huge deficit, and we had to believe that, at the end of the day they would buy our movies, and they did. So at some point you've got to, make sure that you believe in what you're doing, and then you believe that it's the right thing, and for that you need to discuss it with people that the business and get some feedback and all that, and go forward with it. This also created a situation where at some point, after the fact that they overcome the fact that we were not going to do the projects that they wanted to be done, they found somebody else to do these projects. They said, well, now we're going to want more rights than the US rights. And we said, we can't do that. And they said, why not? We're opening Lifetime in different countries, UK, this and that, and why not? We're going to pay you. I said, because we have clients that we're in business with for 11 years that have been supportive of us, and it doesn't mean we don't want to, but we just can't. And we had to explain why, and we're probably amongst a very few number of producers today who can do business with them without selling world rights or most of the world rights.
And Jesse, will U.S. producers come to, an outfit like Muse, typically for that reason, to be able to control more of the rights and have to give everything up?
I guess the advantage of the CanCon system that the Canadian producers have is the insistence that copyright be held by the Canadian company. That is a negotiating point that is. There's no sway on that. There's no give on that. You can't split your copyright if you're going to do CanCon. If you want the advantages of CanCon, the tax credits, the increased license fees in Canada, and all these American networks want this, American producers want this because it's very valuable money to these productions. Then you have to talk about the issue of copyright, which is something André knows is really, really valuable, especially if you have a very successful show once you've controlled the copyright. So what we're seeing, and we're seeing this a bit in non-scripted, we've opened a Toronto office this year, and we're trying to get into blue chip non-scripted for Discovery and Nat Geo, those kind of shows. And we're seeing that the American producers are very aware of this Canadian advantage, that if you come and set up your show, especially if you've developed as an American producer, you've developed some interest at a network, call it Nat Geo, a History Channel, a Discovery Channel, they'll come to you and say, well, we'll make a deal with you guys. There's interest at Discovery, but we want to run it through Canada. And there's the big advantage is because then suddenly
Canadian company, and in this case the American producer, is benefiting from the ability to hold on to the rights, the distribution rights, that cannot be given away to an American studio or an American network group like a Lifetime or a Disney or any of these groups. Discovery has all its channels around the world that would love to keep the rights for, and underpaid for the value of these rights, especially. That's a big problem. And we're seeing this as well with Disney, the Disney Group these days. They're trying to push these deals on producers where they're feeding their channels, and then they'll give you a distribution window after they've fed their channels. It can be really, really complicated deal making, and I'm not sure it makes sense sometimes. When the deal is not only the United States, but 15 Disney channels around the world, and it's the same price they thought in the past.
We're coming to the end. Any yes?
We've seen recently what seems to be a great international trend with L'amour and Quartet and even Henry, the humans. The population is getting older. So does it have an influence on you? You're seeing older actors coming back in the trend. Does it have any influence on what the future projects are?
Did everyone understand the question?
With the aging population, does that impact the choice of the actors we put in the movies? In my case, no, because the advertisers are looking at the same. They're still looking at the same age group, which is 18 to 40, 45 years old. So that's where they want to be. That's where they want to reach. So they're still looking at that. So the actors are mid-20s to mid-30s.
My perspective on the issue is that the core demo is still going to be 18 to 35s, and as the market that every advertiser still wants to reach. And we've seen so much fragmentation in terms of audiences, and so many opportunities in kids or teens. I mean, in the family market, you can divide it into so many categories: 4 to 6, 12 to 13s, teens. And our strategy as a company, from a developing series perspective, is that we really want series that are, we take, a diversified approach across the age demographics. We want female-centered series. We want action series. We want to be developing action series. We've been developing some teen series, some very pay-only series, and then some conventional stuff as well. So I think as a producer, you're kind of ultimately looking at who is your end buyer and what their needs are at a network level. And we're lucky that I think with the golden age of television that we live in now, there's so many different networks and so many different demographics that you're addressing. It's not just an older audience. Jacques.
Well, in my case, it's different, but it's the same also, because the first question that our distributor asks us when we present the project and want to have them on board with us, even to be partnered, to put an MG or to pre-buy the film, they ask, okay, what's your project and what's the target audience? So basically, indirectly, of course, it will, but definitely, I'm not sure about the actor, because but definitely the product that we're making, what's the target audience, that's the distributor. We have to, if we want to finance it, because I always say that the best quality of a good producer is a producer who can finance his project. If you cannot finance the project, even if you might be the best producer in the world, but if you don't produce, nobody will know. So definitely we are aware of it. That last week I had a meeting at SODEC in Quebec, and they had a study showing who's paying the $10 to see, to go to the cinema, and that's that bracket, that 18, 35, and even younger than 18. So they asked me, and SODEC, they had a reputation to be to look very much at the content, but I think they are also looking at the result, because that was their first question.
But you're right, it's interesting. If I may just add, a film like Oak Springs, which is a subject matter for adults, which have actors that are well into their 50s, did more than $100 million worldwide. So there is a real market there.
Marigold Hotel.
Marigold
Quartet.
Hotel, yeah.
And is that?
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Lincoln, you know.
That's really old.
Yeah.
No, but absolutely. No, but we did over 100 million, 125. So, you know, a good product is a good product, you know. But definitely there's some product that target
Target different audience.
So you have to consider shifting demographics. But what about what everyone's talking about? And for the last few years, it seems shifting technologies and multi-platform distribution and consumption. Does that affect your strategic development at the start, Jesse?
Yeah, I for sure. I mean, the fact that SVOD services are paying real dollars these days for high quality programming is transformative for companies like ours, particularly with Netflix and Hulu in the United States. It's created a new market that didn't exist there before, and an opportunity for Canadian shows that in the past would have been passed on by the big American networks or would have a challenge to get onto cable. There suddenly is these services out there that are very popular, that are paying real dollars for shows, and that is and not only that, the value of having a show on, say, a Netflix in the U.S. or a Hulu seems to have the value that you used to get of having a show on in the United States in foreign buyers kind of go, oh, you've got it on a U.S. network, even if it's not really a network, it's Netflix. That's great, and that helps international sales along.
Have they're here? Have you met them?
They've been transformative, I think, for everybody in this
Yeah,
business. Yeah.
Even Amazon now is a player.
Yeah.
Amazon is paying offering prices for television series, drama series, the same prices as networks are offering right now. So it's a huge change. It's a new player. Netflix, Amazon.
So it's really replacing the declining pre-sales and network market.
Well, it's keeping them honest. You had competition, so before you didn't have much choice. You had an offer. You were lucky if you had an offer, so you would take it. And today you have many different buyers. So it's a more interesting environment than it used to be. Certainly, there's a lot of money in the system.
Interesting. And what about for feature?
Well, in my case, I cannot say that we have a lot of distributors those days, so I don't know. I'll let you do your own thinking about that.
Any last questions? Yes.
I have a question in regards to the past, because you guys have mentioned, that's okay. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Television has gone a lot more cinematic. The quality has been incredible. Canadian actors, though, are you guys having an easier times attaching them? Because we know that this is very dependent on getting distribution and maybe some financing, as you guys have mentioned. And U.S. talent, I mean, that cast is, it's easy, right, to name and to get, they're stars, like you said. But in Canada, are we getting there with talent? Are we getting stronger with our talent?
Well,
Their stars?
Well, television-wise, we certainly have great actors. We don't, and from my point of view, we don't have enough. Because when you do 5 or 6 movies per year, you can't have all, same actors can be in all your movies. So we cast in Vancouver, we cast in Toronto, we cast in Montreal, we fly them in, and after a few years of doing that, you're starting to work again with, the same guys and same actors. So I think that is going to be the environment today. I think is going to create more opportunities for actors, certainly in the television field.
In my case, first of all, there's 2 different worlds if we do a film in French or in English. Because in Quebec we also produce in French and some very good film also in French, and we have enough good French actors. But you would be interested to know that even our French film, they're not really welcome in France because they not necessarily understand very well, or they don't want to to hear our accent. Imagine you have that accent in English, imagine in French for them. But in French it's different in terms of the actor, because we have our own star system, and that's also a reason of our success in Quebec. It's not because we're different, we're so better than the rest of Canada, but because we have privilege to have this star system. In English, in the feature film business, to find we need names, we need star to finance when we have a bigger budget. So unfortunately, we have not enough Canadian actors or Canadian actresses that are well known. And when they are well known, Rachel McAdam or those great names, they going to the US, and then when we need to talk to them, we need to talk to their agent, and exactly, and they're like an American actor. So no, we don't have enough Canadian based star, that's for sure. And we need that. We need them. It's a key if we want to find it. And even our financier, our partner, our distributor, they ask for that. It's part of the requirement. We have no choice.
But Jesse, a big part of our and Brett's star system is that ability to go from feature to TV back to feature. How much do you guys exploit that pretty unique quality in Canada?
Well, I mean, that's certainly an advantage in Quebec. That there are Quebec directors and Quebec creative talent DPs who go from working on $10 million or $5 million Quebecois movies, I had a meeting the other day with Eric Tessier, he directed Pee-wee 3D. Quite a good success in Quebec, very commercial movie. He's a great director. And then he's telling me, this I think was a $5 million budget. He's going to, his next project is a TV series for Quebecois, for TVA, that they're producing for an hour at $350 an hour. So it was amazing for me to speak to him, and this is the kind of talent. They're doing fantastic features, and then come and do Quebecois television. Our delight to do that, Quebecois television. I've had the same experience we were talking about Pierre Gill earlier, a DP that we all love, and I've had that experience with Pierre, where he comes off his big service movies that Summit might be producing in Montreal, and then he comes does our TV show that's on a Canadian content TV show. I think it's a really unique thing to Quebec. But one thing I did want to comment on, you always hear a lot of Canadian producers griping that there isn't a star system in Canada. And it's something that, André, you touched upon. Our star system, we have a Canadian star system. The problem is it gets pilfered every day.
Yeah, exactly.
The great stars from our country, the directors, Ken, how long is he going to be around? And he's an example of one of these, Quebecois talent who's going to go big. There's no doubt about it.
Or André, for that matter.
And that's I think our challenges as Canadian producers is when the talent is successful and has had a huge run in the United States. How do you get to them? How do you convince them to do Canadian shows in the future? Kiefer Sutherland's of this world,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah, and we could go on and on.
Yeah.
I've been told we have to wrap up, but I'm just going to harp on this interesting hybrid, the talent that does both feature and TV. And we have one of the best in the world called Mark Gordon. He's produced the Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, huge television producer. He's also a huge feature film producer, 2012, Saving Private Ryan, Day After Tomorrow. And if any of you happen to be in Montreal next Tuesday, I will be interviewing Mark Gordon next Tuesday at noon in Montreal. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This guy is really one of the top 4 or 5 producers in the world. So
Great guy.
Yeah. So on that note, I cannot thank you guys enough. It's been really interesting. Thank you for being so generous with some of the secrets to your success. Can't give everything.